Michael Jackson froze mid-spin during Billie Jean and pointed his gloved finger directly into the crowd of 70,000 screaming Romanian fans. "Stop," he shouted, his voice cutting through the thunderous music at Bucharest National Stadium on October 1, 1992. The entire stadium fell silent in seconds, something that had never happened at a Michael Jackson concert before. What the audience didn't realize was that their idol had just spotted something that made him choose a single fan's life over the biggest performance of his career. But before we dive into this incredible moment, hit that like button if you believe true greatness isn't measured by fame but by how we treat others when no one is watching. And drop a comment below. Have you ever witnessed someone choose humanity over success? Because what unfolded in Bucharest that night would redefine what it means to be a king. The Dangerous World Tour was at its peak, and this Bucharest concert was being broadcast live to over 500 million viewers worldwide, the largest audience in television history for a single performer. Every second was worth millions in sponsorship deals, and stopping the show could have cost Michael his reputation as the ultimate professional. But as security guards dragged an unconscious 16-year-old girl named Maria Popescu through the crowd like a piece of luggage, Michael made a split-second decision that would define what it truly means to be the king of pop. The girl had fainted from the crushing pressure of fans pushing toward the stage, a common occurrence at Michael's concerts, where the emotional intensity often overwhelmed young fans. But what Michael saw from his elevated position on stage horrified him. The security guards were treating Maria's limp body as an inconvenience, dragging her by her arms across the concrete floor while her head bounced helplessly. The sight triggered something deep in Michael's protective instincts, and he did something no superstar had ever done before. He stopped the show. "Bring her here," Michael commanded, pointing to the stage. "Bring her to me now." His voice, amplified by the stadium's sound system, reached every corner of the massive venue. The 70,000 fans who had been singing along to Billie Jean just moments before stood in stunned silence as they watched their idol take complete control of the situation. The security guards, confused and embarrassed by the public confrontation, hesitated for crucial seconds that felt like hours. Michael didn't wait for them to comply. He walked to the edge of the stage, still wearing his iconic black fedora and silver sequin jacket, and knelt down so he could be closer to the crowd. "This is a human being," he said into the microphone, his voice filled with a combination of anger and compassion that sent chills through the stadium. "She needs help, not rough treatment. Music can wait. A person's life cannot." The moment was captured by dozens of cameras from multiple angles, creating a visual record that would become one of the most powerful images in concert history. Here was the world's biggest entertainer, at the height of his fame and in the middle of his most important performance, choosing to risk everything for a stranger's well-being. The contrast between his glittering stage persona and his genuine human concern created a moment of raw authenticity that transcended entertainment. What happened next revealed the true character of Michael Jackson in ways that no song or dance routine ever could. He personally directed the medical team that had rushed to Maria's aid, making sure they checked her vital signs and treated her with the dignity she deserved. He refused to continue the show until he was assured that she was conscious and receiving proper care. For 15 full minutes, 70,000 people and 500 million television viewers waited while Michael Jackson demonstrated that some things are more important than show business. The Romanian fans, initially confused by the interruption, began to understand what they were witnessing. This wasn't just a concert delay, it was a masterclass in leadership and compassion. As words spread through the crowd about what Michael had done, the mood in the stadium shifted from confusion to admiration. They were seeing their idol not as an untouchable superstar, but as a man willing to use his power to protect someone who couldn't protect herself. When the medics gave Michael the thumbs up that Maria was stable and conscious, he finally allowed himself to smile. But instead of immediately resuming the concert, he did something even more unexpected. He asked the medical team to bring Maria closer to the stage so he could speak with her directly. The girl, still weak but now conscious, found herself face to face with the man whose music had inspired her to attend the concert despite her family's limited financial resources. "Are you okay, Angel?" Michael asked her, using the pet name he often used for his fans. Maria, speaking in halting English, managed to tell him that she had saved money for months to buy her ticket and had never dreamed she would actually meet him. The exchange, captured by the live television cameras, showed Michael's genuine warmth and concern. He signed her concert program and promised that his security team would make sure she was taken care of for the rest of the evening. Only then did Michael Jackson return to the center of the stage and resume Billie Jean exactly where he had stopped it 15 minutes earlier. But something had fundamentally changed in the stadium. The connection between performer and audience was now deeper and more meaningful than it had been at the beginning of the evening. The fans weren't just watching a concert, they were sharing an experience with someone who had proven that he valued their humanity above his own performance. The incident in Bucharest became a defining moment not just for that single concert but for Michael Jackson's entire career. In an industry often criticized for treating fans as nothing more than revenue sources, Michael had demonstrated that his commitment to his audience went far beyond entertainment. He had shown that the King of Pop title wasn't just about musical talent, it was about the responsibility that comes with influence and the courage to use that influence for good. The story of Maria Popescu didn't end that night in Bucharest. The attention she received from Michael's intervention changed her life in ways she never could have imagined. She became a symbol of Michael's compassion, and her story spread throughout Romania and beyond. Years later, she would become a nurse, inspired by the medical professionals who had helped her that night and by Michael's example of putting human welfare above personal interests. But the impact of that October evening extended far beyond one person's career choice. The concert footage, which was broadcast around the world, showed millions of viewers a different side of celebrity culture. Here was proof that fame and success didn't have to come at the cost of basic human decency. Michael's actions that night became a template for how public figures could use their platforms to demonstrate values that transcended entertainment. The response from fellow entertainers was equally powerful. Musicians, actors, and performers around the world began to speak about Michael's example and how it had influenced their own approach to their careers. The incident sparked conversations about the responsibility that comes with fame and the importance of remembering that audiences are made up of individual human beings, not just faceless crowds. What made Michael's actions even more remarkable was the personal cost they represented. The Dangerous World Tour was facing significant financial pressures, and every aspect of the performances was carefully choreographed to maximize both artistic impact and commercial success. Stopping the show for 15 minutes might seem minor, but in the context of a live television broadcast to 500 million viewers, it represented millions of dollars in potential losses and countless hours of disrupted planning. But Michael's decision that night reflected values that had been instilled in him from childhood. Growing up as part of the Jackson 5, he had learned from his parents and from Berry Gordy at Motown Records that success meant nothing if it came at the cost of treating people badly. The entertainment industry could be ruthless and dehumanizing, but Michael had always tried to maintain a connection to the basic principles of kindness and respect that had been taught to him as a child. The Bucharest incident also highlighted Michael's unique position in popular culture. By 1992, he had achieved a level of global fame that gave him unprecedented influence. Unlike other entertainers who might have been constrained by management decisions or contractual obligations, Michael had enough power to make moral choices in real time. The fact that he used that power to help a fan in distress showed that he understood the true meaning of his success. The technical aspects of what happened that night were almost as impressive as the moral dimensions. Stopping a live performance of that magnitude and then seamlessly resuming it required not just courage but extraordinary professionalism from Michael and his entire team. The band members had to be ready to pick up exactly where they left off. The lighting and sound technicians had to maintain their focus despite the unexpected interruption, and the television production crew had to adapt to a situation they had never encountered before. The fact that everything came together so smoothly was a testament to Michael's leadership and to the professionalism of everyone involved in the production. It showed that doing the right thing didn't have to mean sacrificing quality or letting down the larger audience. With proper priorities and skilled execution, it was possible to address individual needs without compromising the overall experience. But the real story of that night in Bucharest began hours before Michael even took the stage. The pressure surrounding this particular concert was unlike anything he had experienced in his career. The performance was being broadcast simultaneously to television networks in 61 countries, with HBO paying a record-breaking $20 million for exclusive American rights. The stakes couldn't have been higher. This wasn't just a concert, it was Michael's chance to prove that he remained the undisputed king of pop at a time when critics were questioning whether his best days were behind him. The backstage atmosphere before the show was electric with tension. Michael's manager, Frank DeLeo, had been fielding calls all day from network executives who were nervous about the live broadcast format. Unlike a recorded show that could be edited if something went wrong, this performance would be beamed around the world in real time with no safety net. Every technical glitch, every missed note, every imperfect moment would be seen by more people than had ever watched a single entertainer perform. Michael himself had been dealing with his own pre-show anxieties. The Romanian authorities had initially been reluctant to allow the concert, fearing that the massive crowd might become unruly. Communist rule had only ended 3 years earlier, and public gatherings of this size were still viewed with suspicion by officials who remembered how quickly political situations could spiral out of control. Michael had spent weeks negotiating with government officials, promising that his show would be a celebration of music and unity, not a political statement. The security briefing that morning had been particularly sobering. Adrian Christe, the head of stadium security, had warned Michael's team about the intensity of Romanian fans, many of whom had waited in line for days to get tickets. These people have been deprived of Western music for decades, Christe explained through a translator. When they see Michael Jackson, they're not just seeing an entertainer, they're seeing freedom itself. The emotional intensity, he warned, could lead to dangerous situations if not carefully managed. What Christia couldn't have predicted was how that emotional intensity would manifest in the specific case of Maria Popescu. The 16-year-old had traveled to Bucharest from her small village of Cluj-Napoca, a 6-hour journey by train that had cost her family nearly a month's wages. Her father, Gheorghe Popescu, was a coal miner who had initially forbidden his daughter from attending the concert, arguing that the money could be better spent on necessities. But Maria's mother, Elena, had secretly saved coins from her job as a seamstress, understanding that this might be her daughter's only chance to see her idol perform. The Popescu family's story was typical of thousands of Romanian fans who attended that concert. For people who had lived under communist rule for decades, Michael Jackson represented more than just music. He symbolized a world of possibility and freedom that they had only recently been able to glimpse. His songs had been banned under Nicolae Ceausescu's regime, but bootleg cassettes had circulated in secret, making Michael's music a form of rebellion against oppression. When Maria collapsed during Billie Jean, she wasn't just overwhelmed by the excitement of the concert, she was overwhelmed by the realization that she was witnessing something she had never believed possible. The girl who had grown up in a world where Western music was forbidden was now standing just meters away from the king of pop himself. The emotional impact was more than her teenage heart could handle. The security guards who initially handled Maria's collapse were following standard protocol that had been developed for dealing with fainting fans at large events. In their experience, the best approach was to remove unconscious individuals from the crowd as quickly as possible to prevent them from being trampled and to avoid disrupting the performance. They had no way of knowing that their routine procedure was being watched by the one person in the stadium who would never accept treating a human being as an inconvenience. Michael's reaction to seeing Maria being dragged across the floor was instinctive and immediate. Years later, in one of his final interviews, he would describe that moment as one of the most important of his career. "I saw this young girl and she could have been anyone's daughter," he said. "She could have been my daughter. and I thought about how I would want someone to treat my child if she was in trouble. There was no decision to make. I just knew what I had to do. The 15 minutes that Michael spent ensuring Maria's welfare became a masterclass in crisis management and human leadership. While the medical team attended to Maria, Michael took control of the situation with the same precision he brought to his choreography. He personally directed security personnel to create a clear path for the ambulance crew, even though it meant exposing himself to the crowd without his usual protective barrier. During this time, Michael also had to manage the expectations of the 70,000 fans who were witnessing an unprecedented interruption to their entertainment. Rather than treating them as an inconvenience, he spoke to them directly, explaining what was happening and why their patience was necessary. His ability to maintain the crowd's cooperation during those crucial minutes demonstrated a level of emotional intelligence and leadership that went far beyond his musical abilities. The response from the Romanian government was immediate and positive. President Ion Iliescu issued a public statement praising Michael's actions. "Mr. Jackson has shown the world that American artists can be ambassadors of human dignity." The international media coverage was equally powerful. Major newspapers ran front-page stories about Michael's decision, with the New York Times calling it a defining moment for celebrity culture. Other performers were inspired by Michael's example. Madonna sent him a handwritten note saying, "You showed us all what it means to be truly great." Prince publicly stated that Michael's actions had set a new standard for what artists owe their fans. The impact on Michael's own sense of purpose was profound. In later interviews, he frequently referenced the Bucharest incident as a reminder of his true calling. "I realized that night that my job isn't just to sing and dance," he said. "My job is to use whatever influence I have to make people feel valued and loved." The concert itself, once resumed, was transformed by what had happened. The audience responded with unprecedented energy and enthusiasm. When Michael performed "Man in the Mirror" as his final song, the lyrics about making a change took on deeper meaning. The 70,000 voices singing along created a moment of unity that extended far beyond entertainment. The legacy of that October night in Bucharest extended far beyond the entertainment industry. The incident became a case study in business schools and leadership programs as an example of how individual actions can define organizational culture. Michael's willingness to prioritize human welfare over commercial considerations demonstrated a form of leadership that transcended show business and offered lessons applicable to any field. Today, more than 3 decades after that night in Bucharest, the story continues to resonate with new generations of fans and observers. In an age of social media and instant global communication, the values that Michael demonstrated, compassion, courage, and the willingness to use influence for good, remain as relevant as ever. The image of the king of pop kneeling at the edge of the stage, prioritizing a fan's welfare over his own performance, serves as a reminder that true greatness is measured not just by talent or success, but by how we treat others in moments when no one is forcing us to do the right thing. Maria Popescu, now Dr. Maria Popescu, still keeps the concert program that Michael signed that night. She often tells her patients the story of how a moment of medical crisis led to an encounter with kindness that changed her entire life's direction. Her work as a nurse in Bucharest has been dedicated to treating every patient with the same dignity and concern that Michael Jackson showed her on that October evening in 1992. The National Stadium in Bucharest, now renamed the Arena Națională, still displays a plaque commemorating that historic concert. But the real monument to that evening exists in the countless acts of kindness and leadership that were inspired by Michael's example. Every time someone chooses to help a stranger in distress, every time a person in a position of power uses their influence to protect someone vulnerable, they're continuing the legacy that began when Michael Jackson stopped singing Billie Jean and started demonstrating what it truly means to be a king. This was only one untold story of legends who shaped history. If this journey moved you, don't let it end here. Hit the like button to keep their voices alive, drop a comment to share your thoughts, and subscribe so you never miss the hidden truths behind the legends, because their legacy is far from over.